pedagogical stance is a process, I would say, that helps you uncover your philosophies and values as an educator and maybe as a human overall. Like, that's what the experience has been, and with a lot of reflection through the process.
So a pedagogical stance for me is a description of something I find really important that I want to incorporate in my practice. And so it's a way to take the research and the learnings that we've had and the experience that I've had and sort of analyze it and bring it together into a statement that reflects something important.
It identifies yourself, how you're going to teach the students, and what you're going to do in your classroom, and how you're going to work with your community.
So the essence of the pedagogical stance is for teachers to reflect over time on their identity as teachers and to grow and practice and iterate and continually shift and change, to learn, to unlearn, and to relearn pedagogical practices that were a part of their lives themselves as students when they were in the school system, and to be able to think strategically as a teacher. What's important to me, and how am I going to best contribute to the lives of the learners that are in my care?
Doing a PED stance is reassuring as a learner that it's something that you're building upon, and you're getting a deeper knowledge, and there's layers upon layers, and there's different perspectives, and each course that we take, you're adding to this. You know, we always talk about a toolbox, but I felt like at different times as an educator, this is like, you know, you're putting into your bag all these different ideas and concepts, and it was something that was building within you instead of just knowledge that was to be regurgitated. It was part of who you were becoming as an educator.
It was to ensure that we had an aspect in the program that looked at teacher identity, that enabled teacher candidates to see themselves as educators and make links between who they are, their lived experience, their values, theory, and pedagogy. So it's really a connecting of these pieces as a through line throughout the program to help teachers in their process of becoming, and help the teacher candidates recognize that they are educators already and they're in a process of construction, deconstruction, and reconstruction.
So the pedagogical stance process in our programs is a process by which teacher candidates develop who they are as an educator. They come in with their values and points of view and experiences already with rich backgrounds, and then they start learning about what it is to be an educator. And throughout the program, teacher candidates have several opportunities to present their pedagogical stances as they are at that time, each term. And with each presentation, as the terms progress, it is really exciting to see the progress that the teacher candidates make, how they deepen their connections to their readings, to their place, to their coursework.
One of the beautiful things about revisiting the pedagogical stance is that it allows teacher candidates to be able to engage in something that's actually a part of our practice throughout our careers as teachers. And that is the practice of deep reflection. Reflecting on who we are as teachers, reflecting on what it is that we've tried and what we've done, and then putting into practice those strategies, those instructional practices that are going to make a difference for our learners, and then make sense of them and see if indeed what we're doing is something that's having an impact.
I had a really traditional experience in school, and as a neurodivergent learner, that was really tricky for me because I didn't always feel that I was welcome or safe in the space that I was learning in. So having this PED stance where we kind of have to deep dive into what our pedagogy is and what we want to be able to teach our students when we get older and become certified teachers. I think the most important thing for me is just maintaining that safe environment, and that's really come to light by doing these PED stance presentations.
One or two of the core aspects of my pedagogical stance are equity and diversity is a huge one, ensuring that there is a balance of all learners being heard in the classroom. And the second one I would say that is foundational for me is inquiry-based learning for the students, giving them the choice of what they're doing, giving them the chance to create rubrics and create their own learning opportunities with me so that they have that engagement piece as well as that learning piece.
There is so much knowledge that I have gained these past 2 years. Land-based learning, play-based is the number one. Students come first, and having the students' choice, let them decide what they want to learn. That way it's more meaningful for them and to get to know them.
When I think back to creating my first one, I felt, like most people, a little kind of worried about, am I doing this the right way? But I felt like I was really supported in finding my path with creating my pedagogical stance. And it came really down to me for where I saw myself as a teacher, my belief systems around being a teacher and what that meant, and where I felt like I was headed.
It creates an opportunity for teacher candidates initially just to get used to this idea of them deciding what's important and anchoring their emerging stance in key ideas that they've been exposed to in the program. Each term, they're exposed to new theory, research, pedagogy, and yet they're working and we're creating an opportunity for them to continue to consolidate, connect, and refine.
I think halfway through we realized, this is professional development, and this is something I'm going to be doing my whole time as a co-learner and an educator. I'm learning new things, I'm unlearning new things, I'm working with different people, different ideas, and it's teaching you how to evolve in our world.
It's about really, really embracing and embodying pedagogy and what we're learning. And I think when you come at it from that perspective, it's so much more meaningful and valuable to us as teachers to have that pedagogy before we can even go into the school. So you truly know what you as a teacher have to offer.
So at the beginning, when I was crafting my PedStat statements, the kinds of learnings and evidence that I would include were mainly school-based. So things that I had learned here in Nelson or our online classes. And it would be readings, slides from our professors' presentations, or thoughts that I had had. But as it progressed and we started to enter the classroom space, I started to add more of the experiences that I had. So more lived experience, sort of balanced a bit more with those learnings and readings in school, which I think made it a much more well-rounded statement.
Teacher candidates appreciate the opportunity to sense make. It is a little difficult to do because there's not a thing they're supposed to say and there's not an outcome that they're supposed to deliver content-wise. And so there is a discomfort in figuring out what's important to you. But there's also a sense of agency that comes from making decisions for yourself and wrestling with them.
I think some of the things that surprised me was that you're never finished learning. Like, I learned things about myself and that I really didn't realize were there. Different biases and ways of looking at just things in our world. It uncovered a lot for me, and that you can always relearn and unlearn and connect.
Looking at the traditional classroom, it's incredible how much I've unlearned and relearned. We don't have to be in desks. We don't have to be facing the front of the classroom. The teacher is not the only educator in the room. They're also not the only learner in the room. Like, we are all learning from each other. And I think a lot of that traditional colonial classroom, we don't have to be there anymore. We can start our mornings outside. We can move our classroom into different environments. We can collaborate with other classes, which I think is really huge, especially when we get back to those northern schools and the multi-level classrooms.
We commit time in the inquiry courses throughout the program to scaffold this process. We invite teacher candidates to keep some kind of a portfolio, or Terry Taylor describes it as a shoebox, or a metaphorical shoebox, to keep things in that are important or significant as artifacts to come back to or resources to refer to. And then as we move through the semester, towards the end of the semester, we stop and say, what are some significances for you? What are some things that are becoming really important and foundational for you across the courses and the experiences? And then we ask teacher candidates to draw from their experiences in classrooms and schools, their own autobiographies, their engagements with other educators, but also research and theory. While that's not an easy process, it's an important process to figure out how these things to go together, because practicum is connected to theory and theory is connected to practice, and practice is always connected to who you are.
So the advice I would give to future teacher candidates when you're going through your pedagogical stance is to really hone in on your practice, figure out who you are, and allow it to evolve. We start with one aspect of what we think we are, but then as we go through our readings, as we learn the theory, and then we get to actually apply it in our practicum, we find ourselves evolving so much more as educators. So we begin at one place, but we grow so much through the process.
Don't stress about it too much. You're gonna learn things. Like, there's so much information and so many new techniques and strategies that you learn to take, and that it's kind of up to you, your choice. You kind of pick which ones stick with you and which ones don't. And I think you're also like unlearning a lot of stuff that you brought with you that you weren't aware of. And so, like I said, you probably will stress out a little bit before each one, but like I've never left one feeling stressed or bad. I think like you get a ton of support during them. And so it just helps you to grow as a teacher.
Speak from the heart. Do what's true to you as a teacher, because nobody else is going to do it better.
Keep notes or artifacts, anything that you can that helps you remember things that are striking, and it doesn't have to be a ton of stuff, but just things that were really important or powerful to you.
I would say keep it simple. Let it be from your heart. You know, I think that now more than ever we need educators who are able to like come from their heart and not from, you know, a textbook or BC curriculum or whatever. It's like really come from a place of like what is important to you as a human being and also as an educator. And it's okay to not know what your pedagogical stance is. It will change and grow as you change and grow as an educator.
You know, you are bringing your full, authentic self, because that's what it takes to be a great teacher, is to keep your mind open, to be willing to be uncomfortable, to have your beliefs challenged, and just also take in new perspectives that you might not have considered before. So I would say, to sum it up, keep an open mind and don't be defensive when you're confronted with information that might not align with previous thinking.
I think it's really important to know who we are as teachers, what's important to us, what our pillars are that ground us in this work, because those will be moved and they will be challenged and they will be pushed around a lot. So understanding what your stance is and what's important to you so that you can be grounded in that feels so essential. And then the second thing is, now I get to look back to the beginning, and it's like I have a timeline of my pedagogical stance over time, and it's a real gift to have that and to see how I have changed and how I have not changed and what is, you know, moving around in me as an educator.
It's about embedding in the careers of teacher candidates what their entire career path is going to be about in education, which is continuing to change, to be lifelong learners, to respond to the needs of the children and youth in their care, and to be the very best teachers that they can be.